Imagine waking up one day and realizing that the person who once lit up your world with a glance has vanished. Not with a fight, not with closure, but with silence. No goodbye, no explanation. Just the dull ache of their absence lingering in your chest like a phantom limb. You scroll through old messages, listen for familiar footsteps in unfamiliar places, wonder if they think of you at 2 a.m. like you do them. How does someone so deeply woven into your emotional fabric unravel themselves so quietly? You replay every detail, hoping to locate the moment it all shifted. But there's only static. A part of you believes they still care, that somewhere behind the wall of silence is a soul aching in ways they cannot say. But if they want you, why don't they reach out? Why does desire so often dress itself in distance? That question is a thread Carl Jung spent his life unraveling. To Jung, there were no accidents in the psyche, only symbols. He believed that our relationships are not random collisions, but meaningful encounters shaped by forces far deeper than conscious desire. The people who enter your life, especially those who leave an unforgettable mark, are not just individuals. They are mirrors, catalysts, and sometimes messengers sent by the unconscious. When someone disappears without warning, we often assume it's a matter of choice, fear, or cruelty. But Jung invites a more haunting question. What hidden part of the psyche was stirred in them when they met you? He taught that our inner world projects itself outward, seeking recognition, healing, and completion through others. So when someone walks away without closure, it may not be a rejection of you, but a retreat from something within themselves awakened by your presence. What if their silence isn't about disinterest, but about a confrontation they weren't ready to face? This brings us to the idea of projection. What if the intensity you felt wasn't just chemistry, but a collision of unconscious truths? Jung believed we project the hidden parts of ourselves onto others, not deliberately, but instinctively. We see in them the courage we suppress, the wounds we deny, the love we crave. And in that reflection, something ancient inside us stirs. Think about the person who left. Did they feel larger than life? Did they awaken feelings you couldn't explain? Yearning, familiarity, even fear? That's not coincidence. It's projection. You weren't just seeing them, you were seeing you. But here's the twist. They were doing the same. You may have mirrored something they couldn't face. A buried memory, a repressed emotion, a truth they weren't ready to hold. And when two unconscious shadows meet, it can feel electric, but also unbearable. Sometimes we don't run from others. We run from what they reflect back to us. This reflection becomes even more powerful when the shadow enters. The shadow, in Jung's view, is not evil. It is exiled. It is every part of you that was shamed, denied, or buried to survive. Your rage, your longing, your vulnerability. And in relationships, especially the ones that grip you without reason, the shadow often slips through the cracks. Now, imagine what happens when your presence awakens their shadow. Maybe you reminded them of a parent's abandonment, or stirred guilt they've never admitted, or mirrored a tenderness they were taught to suppress. Whatever it was, it didn't just unsettle them, it threatened their identity. Because the shadow doesn't knock politely. It crashes through the walls we build around our persona, the version of ourselves we perform for the world. And when that mask starts to slip, many retreat. Not because you harmed them, but because you saw too much. You became a mirror, and mirrors are dangerous to those hiding from themselves. And so begins the dance of avoidance. People don't always leave because they've stopped caring. Sometimes they leave because staying would mean confronting a part of themselves they've spent a lifetime avoiding. You didn't just enter their life, you disrupted it. Not with chaos, but with clarity. You revealed an emotional truth they weren't ready to see. When someone pulls away, it's easy to blame yourself. But what if their silence isn't rejection? It's protection from their own unraveling. Some wounds run so deep they don't bleed, they hide, buried under smiles, distractions, relationships that never go too deep. Then you came along. Maybe you loved them too honestly, saw them too clearly, and in doing so you awakened ghosts they thought were long dead. That kind of intimacy doesn't always lead to closeness. It often leads to retreat, because facing the truth of who we are is far more terrifying than losing someone who sees it. But this fear, Jung taught, is part of a deeper journey, individuation. Jung called it individuation, the lifelong process of becoming whole. Not perfect, not polished, but integrated. It means confronting the fractures within you, the child who felt abandoned, the adult who hides behind control, the desires you disowned to be accepted. We all seek someone to complete us, but Jung warned, what you seek in another is often the part of yourself you've disowned. That's why their absence cuts so deep. It doesn't just feel like losing them. It feels like losing a piece of you. But here's the truth few dare to face. The person who disappeared may have simply played their role. They came to awaken what needed healing, and their exit was part of that sacred script. Because individuation isn't about clinging, it's about reclaiming. It's about seeing that what you thought was theirs to give was always yours to find. And that starts with turning the gaze inward. Instead of asking why they left, ask what part of yourself went with them. What did they symbolize? A sense of safety? Validation? The love you never gave yourself? The unconscious doesn't bond with people, it bonds with meaning. And when that meaning walks away, the pain it leaves isn't just emotional, it's existential. But this is the invitation Jung whispered through his work. The person you lost was a teacher in disguise. They mirrored a part of you you were meant to reclaim. Were you drawn to their strength? Then perhaps it's time to uncover your own. Did their absence trigger abandonment? Then maybe it's time to soothe the child within who still waits to be chosen. We keep searching for them, when what we're really searching for is us. And once you realize that, the obsession shifts. The question is no longer, why didn't they stay? But what part of myself do I now have the chance to meet? Closure is a myth when we expect it to come from someone else. The truth is, most people leave the same way they lived, with unfinished thoughts, unspoken fears, and a heart full of contradictions. They vanish not to hurt you, but because they cannot face what staying would require. So how do you close a door that was never gently shut, only left swinging in the wind? You do it from within. You stop waiting for an apology that may never arrive, and instead ask, what did this relationship awaken in me that I now need to resolve myself? Jung taught that every ending is a summons for integration. Their disappearance wasn't the end of your story, it was the start of a deeper chapter. One where the answers are no longer searched for in their eyes, but in your reflection. Closure isn't something you're given. It's something you claim. Emotional freedom begins the moment you stop chasing ghosts. The moment you stop needing their words to validate your worth, or their return to heal your wound. That ache in your chest, it's not longing for them. It's the echo of your own abandoned self, waiting to be heard. Jung believed that liberation doesn't come from forgetting, but from facing. You look directly at the pain, you let it burn through the illusions, and in that fire, you discover something no one can give or take. Inner sovereignty. You realize that their silence is no longer a threat, but a teacher. It showed you where you were still enslaved by hope, still bargaining with fate. Freedom isn't detachment from emotion, it's detachment from dependency. You don't stop feeling it, you stop clinging. And in that release, something unexpected happens. You rise, not hardened but whole, because now you no longer need them to return. You have already returned to yourself. The unconscious doesn't speak in words, it speaks in patterns. And relationships, especially the ones that collapse without warning, are its language. Jung believed these connections don't just happen to us, they happen for us, to disturb, to awaken, to transform. You weren't meant to endlessly replay what went wrong. You were meant to ask, what is this experience trying to teach me? The person who vanished was never the destination. They were the catalyst, a mirror held to your wounds, your desires, your forgotten self. And when you stop looking outward, when you bravely descend into the labyrinth of your own psyche, you begin to see the architecture of your choices, the hidden fears you've mistaken for intuition, the wounds you've called love, the silence you've confused with rejection. This is the alchemy Jung spoke of, turning pain into understanding, turning loss into clarity. And as you emerge, you don't just attract someone new, you attract someone aligned with who you've finally become.